Haunted House Mystery. The old mansion on Hillcrest Road had stood empty for decades, its windows like dark, watching eyes. Its reputation as a haunted house was well known, and the stories about it were as numerous as they were terrifying. That's exactly why Emma, an adventurous journalist, and her cameraman, Jack, a firm skeptic, found themselves standing before its looming gates one chilly October evening. Their mission was simple: debunk the myths surrounding the house. Emma, with her ever-present curiosity and a love for the mysterious, was determined to uncover the truth. Jack, on the other hand, was sure they would find nothing more than dust and cobwebs. As they pushed open the creaking gate, a cold wind whispered through the gnarled trees, as if warning them to stay away. The house, with its peeling paint and overgrown ivy, looked more menacing up close. Emma felt a shiver run down her spine, but her determination pushed her forward. The front door groaned open, revealing a grand but decayed hallway. Their footsteps echoed on the wooden floor, breaking the haunting silence. Emma's flashlight beam danced across old portraits, their eyes seeming to follow every move. They began their exploration, Jack documenting every step with his camera. The house was a labyrinth of rooms, each one more unsettling than the last. Dust-laden furniture, tattered curtains, and the occasional scurry of a rat were all they found, until they discovered the entrance to the basement, hidden under a rotten carpet. The door to the basement was unlike any other in the house. It was iron, cold, and uninviting. The lock was broken, a sign that someone, or something, had been there before them. With a deep breath, Emma led the way down the creaking steps. The basement was shrouded in darkness, the air stale and heavy. Their lights revealed an old chest in the corner. Inside, Emma found a locket, its chain rusted, the photograph inside faded. There was something about it that felt important, a piece of the house's mysterious puzzle. As they continued to explore, the atmosphere grew heavier, the shadows darker. They heard whispers, but no one was there. Emma's heart raced, but her curiosity drove her deeper into the house's secrets. Jack, trying to stay rational, insisted there must be a logical explanation. Their journey led them to the library, where books lay scattered, their pages yellowed with age. It was there that Emma found the diary of the house's last occupant, a woman who spoke of sorrow and loss, of shadows that whispered in the night. As Emma read aloud, the temperature dropped. The air grew thick with the sense of being watched. Jack, usually a non-believer, couldn't deny the feeling of dread that enveloped them. The whispers grew louder, turning into echoes of the past, cries of despair that filled the room. And then they saw her. A ghostly figure, a woman in a tattered dress, her eyes hollow with grief. She reached out, her voice a mere whisper, "Find the truth." The encounter was brief, but it shook Emma and Jack to their core. They knew they had to uncover the story behind the ghost, the reason for her eternal sorrow. The diary led them to discover the house's dark history, a tale of tragedy and betrayal. The locket, Emma realized, belonged to the ghost. It was a symbol of her lost love, a love that was taken from her in the cruelest of ways. The house wasn't just a building. It was a monument to her unending sorrow. As dawn broke, Emma and Jack emerged from the house, their view of the world forever changed. They had come seeking answers and found more than they had bargained for. The house's mystery was no longer just a story to them. It was a reminder of the thin line between the living and the dead, belief and skepticism. The haunted house on Hillcrest Road remained standing, its secrets partially uncovered but still shrouded in shadows. Emma and Jack would never be the same, forever haunted by the memories of that night. The locket, now a precious artifact, was a testament to the house's sad history, a reminder that some mysteries are better left unsolved. As they left, the sun rising behind them, the house seemed to watch, its windows reflecting their figures. In the light of day, it was just an old building, but in the shadows of the night, it was a gateway to the past, a keeper of secrets, a truly haunted house. The Lost Heir, the grand, old mansion stood isolated at the end of a winding road, its once splendid facade now marred by years of neglect. This was the place Lucy had unexpectedly inherited, a house rumored to conceal a hidden fortune and dark secrets. It was here, under the shadow of its towering turrets, that Lucy's story began, a tale woven with threads of greed, family legacy, and supernatural justice. Lucy, with her bright eyes and determination, was the last known heir of the estate. Having grown up without knowledge of her wealthy lineage, she was both excited and apprehensive about claiming her inheritance. But there was George, a distant relative, whose eyes gleamed with greed and contempt as he contested her claim. George had long coveted the mansion and its hidden treasures, and he was not about to let them slip through his fingers. As Lucy stepped into the mansion, a chill ran down her spine. The house, with its grand staircase and endless corridors, felt alive, watching her every move. The portraits on the walls, ancestors long gone, seemed to follow her with their painted eyes, whispering secrets of the past. Her first night in the mansion was restless. The wind howled outside, making the ancient timbers creak and groan. It was in these small hours of darkness that Lucy first saw them, ghostly figures, wandering the halls, their faces sad and distant. They beckoned to her, guiding her through the house, revealing its hidden passages and locked rooms. In the light of day, Lucy tried to convince herself that the figures were just a dream, but the mansion had a way of blurring the line between reality and illusion. As she explored, she found hidden compartments and secret letters that hinted at the family's turbulent history, a history marked by betrayal and greed. George watched her every move, his eyes narrow and calculating. He tried to intimidate Lucy, to make her leave, but she was resolute. The house was her birthright, and she would not be swayed by his malevolence. The turning point came on a stormy night, when Lucy discovered an old diary belonging to her great-grandmother. The diary revealed the true nature of the family's wealth, a fortune made through deceit and cruelty. It spoke of a cursed treasure, hidden somewhere in the house, a treasure that had brought nothing but misfortune to those who sought it. That same night, the ghostly figures led Lucy to the attic. The rain beat against the windows, and thunder rumbled in the distance. The attic was cluttered with old furniture and trunks filled with memories. It was here, amidst the relics of the past, that Lucy found the hidden treasure, a chest filled with gold and jewels, glittering in the dim light. But the discovery was not a moment of triumph. The air grew cold, and the ghostly figures materialized, their faces twisted in sorrow and pain. They revealed the truth to Lucy, that the treasure was cursed, and that her family had suffered greatly because of it. George burst into the attic, his eyes wild with greed. He lunged for the treasure, but the ghosts intervened, their ethereal hands holding him back. Lucy watched in horror as the ghosts exacted their supernatural justice, punishing George for his avarice and malevolence. In the aftermath, Lucy made a decision. She would not let the curse continue. With the help of the ghosts, she returned the treasure to its rightful places, undoing the wrongs her family had committed. The mansion, relieved of its burden, seemed to sigh in relief. As Lucy left the house, the sun breaking through the clouds, she felt a weight lift from her shoulders. The portraits on the walls, once so ominous, now looked upon her with gentle eyes, their whispers quieted. The mansion, free from the curse, stood tall and proud, a testament to a legacy restored. The story of the Lost Heir was not just a tale of a haunted house and a hidden treasure. It was a story of redemption, of righting the wrongs of the past. Lucy had not only claimed her inheritance, but had also restored honor to her family name. The ghosts, their purpose fulfilled, faded into the light, leaving the mansion at peace. Lucy's journey had begun with uncertainty and fear, but it ended with courage and resolution. The mansion on the hill, once a place of shadows and secrets, was now a symbol of hope, a reminder that even the darkest of legacies can be redeemed. And as for Lucy, she walked away from the mansion a changed woman, her heart light, her spirit unburdened, her place in the family legacy secured. Echoes of the past. In the heart of a forgotten town stood an old, abandoned house, its windows boarded up, its walls worn by time. The house, known for its eerie aura, had been empty for decades, a relic of a bygone era. This very house caught the attention of Sarah, a historian with a passion for old, forgotten places. She was accompanied by Tom, a local who grew up listening to legends about the house. Sarah's curiosity about the house was more than academic. She felt a deep, inexplicable connection to it, as if the house itself was calling out to her. Tom, on the other hand, was more skeptical but knew the local lore well. He warned Sarah of the strange occurrences many townsfolk had experienced near the house. As they stepped inside, the house seemed to groan under their weight, the air thick with dust and memories. The foyer was grand, though now faded, with a grand staircase winding up to the upper floors. Sarah's flashlight beam swept across the walls, revealing faded photographs and paintings, their subjects watching silently. The pair soon discovered a diary, hidden beneath floorboards in what appeared to be a study. The diary belonged to a former resident, a young woman named Elizabeth, who lived in the house during its heyday. As Sarah read the diary aloud, the house seemed to awaken, the atmosphere growing heavy with the echoes of the past. The diary spoke of grand parties and balls, of laughter and music. It also hinted at a secret love, one that was forbidden and deeply passionate. As Sarah and Tom delved deeper into Elizabeth's story, they began to experience flashbacks, as if the house was projecting its memories onto them. They saw visions of Elizabeth, her face alight with joy and sorrow. The most captivating moment came when they found an antique music box in the ballroom. The moment Sarah wound it up, the room transformed. The dust and decay faded away, replaced by the splendor of a bygone era. Ethereal figures appeared, dancing gracefully to the haunting melody of the music box. Sarah and Tom watched, mesmerized, as the ghostly figures danced. They recognized Elizabeth among the dancers, her eyes sad, searching for someone in the crowd. It was then that Sarah realized the music box was not just an object. It was a key, a bridge to the past. As the music played, Sarah felt an overwhelming sense of melancholy. The dancers, trapped in time, were reliving their happiest and most painful moments. Elizabeth's story, filled with love and heartbreak, was etched into the very walls of the house. Tom, who had always been a skeptic, couldn't deny the power of what they were witnessing. The house, with all its memories and spirits, was more alive than they could have ever imagined. It was a portal to the past, holding within it the joys and sorrows of those who had once walked its halls. The climax of their journey came as the music reached its crescendo. The ghostly figures, including Elizabeth, turned towards Sarah and Tom, their eyes filled with longing and sadness. In that moment, Sarah and Tom understood the true nature of the house. It was a vessel for memories, both beautiful and tragic. As the music box wound down, the vision faded, and the house returned to its decrepit state. The spirits vanished, leaving Sarah and Tom in the silent, empty ballroom. The experience had changed them, leaving them with a profound sense of the passage of time and the haunting nature of memories. Sarah, deeply moved by the experience, decided to document the history of the house, to tell the stories of those who had lived and loved within its walls. Tom, now a believer in the legends he had grown up with, vowed to help her. As they left the house, the sun setting behind them, they took one last look at the old mansion. It stood there, silent and imposing, a guardian of the past. They knew they would never forget the echoes of the past they had witnessed, the ghostly ballroom dance, and the haunting melody of the music box. The story of the haunted house and its residents would live on, a testament to the enduring power of memories and the unyielding passage of time. And for Sarah and Tom, the house would always be more than just an old building. It would be a place where the past and present merged, where the echoes of long-forgotten lives still whispered in the wind. Night of the haunting. On a stormy night, under the cloak of darkness and the rumbling of thunder, a group of teenagers stood before the infamous haunted house on the edge of their town. The house, with its broken windows and eerie aura, had been the subject of many local legends and ghost stories. Tonight, driven by a mix of bravery and youthful folly, they had dared each other to spend the night inside. The group was a mix of skeptics and believers. Some were there for the thrill, others to prove there were no such things as ghosts. As lightning illuminated the sky, they stepped into the house, the door creaking shut behind them. Armed with flashlights, they explored the decrepit rooms, their laughter and jokes echoing through the halls. The house seemed to be nothing more than an old, abandoned building, its furnishings covered in dust and cobwebs. That was, until they decided to hold a seance. Gathering in the dusty living room, they sat in a circle, hands touching, a candle flickering in the center. One of them, Alex, took the lead, calling out to any spirits present. At first, it was all in good fun, until the candle flame suddenly went out, plunging them into darkness. Panic set in as unexplained noises filled the air, the sound of footsteps, whispers, things moving in the shadows. The teens scrambled for their flashlights, their hearts racing with fear. The house was no longer just an old building. It had come alive with the horrors of the night. As they tried to find their way out, the house seemed to change, the corridors twisting and turning in impossible ways. They were lost in a labyrinth of fear, each turn bringing them face to face with their nightmares. Shadows moved in the corners of their eyes, and ghostly figures appeared and vanished in the blink of an eye. One of the teens, Emily, stumbled upon a hidden room behind a bookshelf. Inside, they found an old grave, the final resting place of a woman according to the faded inscription on the tombstone. It was then that they remembered the legend of the vengeful spirit, a woman who had been wronged and now haunted the house. The realization hit them like a cold wave. The seance had awakened her spirit, and she was not at rest. The house was her domain, and they were trespassing. The air grew colder, and a feeling of dread enveloped them. They were being hunted, chased through the dark, twisting corridors by the vengeful ghost. Each encounter was more terrifying than the last. The ghost's wails echoing through the house, a sound of anger and sorrow. In their desperate search for an escape, they came across a diary, hidden in the same room as the grave. It belonged to the woman, and through her words, they learned her tragic story, a tale of betrayal and unrequited love. The diary held the key to calming her spirit. The teens, now driven by a desire to help the ghost find peace, worked together to perform a ritual they found in the diary. They returned to the grave, the diary in hand, and read her words aloud. As they did, the ghost appeared, her form less terrifying, more human. The storm outside intensified, the wind howling, the house creaking under the strain. As the final words of the ritual were spoken, a bright light filled the room, and the ghost's figure began to fade. Her expression, once twisted in anger, now softened, a look of relief and peace taking its place. As her spirit vanished, the house seemed to sigh, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. The corridors no longer twisted and turned, the shadows retreated. The teens found their way out, the door opening easily now, leading them back into the stormy night. They emerged from the house changed, no longer the carefree teenagers who had entered. They had faced their fears, encountered the supernatural, and helped a restless spirit find peace. The haunted house on the hill would no longer be a place of terror, but a memory of the night they came face to face with the unknown. The storm passed, and the first light of dawn crept over the horizon. The house, once a place of horror, now stood silent, its story of haunting and redemption etched into the memories of those brave enough to uncover its secrets. As they walked away, the teens knew they would never forget the night of the haunting, a night that tested their courage and taught them the true meaning of fear and the power of compassion. The legend of the haunted house would live on, but now with a new ending, one of hope and closure. The Caretaker's Secret. In the outskirts of a sleepy town, there stood an imposing haunted house known to all but visited by few. The house, with its dark history and unsettling presence, had been under the watchful eye of an old caretaker for many years. The caretaker, a man of few words with deep, knowing eyes, was as much a mystery as the house itself. One misty evening, a group of paranormal investigators arrived at the house, their minds set on uncovering its secrets. They had heard the stories, unexplained noises, ghostly apparitions, and a sense of dread that hung over the place like a heavy cloak. The caretaker greeted them at the door, his expression unreadable. He warned them of the dangers within, but the investigators were undeterred. They were professionals, after all, equipped with the latest in paranormal detection equipment. As they explored the house, the atmosphere grew tense. The walls seemed to whisper, and the air was heavy with the weight of untold stories. The investigators found several hidden rooms, each revealing a piece of the house's dark past. Dust-covered furniture, old photographs, and objects left behind by those who once lived there. But it was the caretaker who held the key to the house's true mystery. As the investigators delved deeper, they began to uncover his backstory. He had been a resident of the house in his youth, along with his family. But a tragedy had struck, one that had left him the sole survivor. The caretaker's tale was one of loss and sorrow, of a family torn apart by a dark force that had taken root in the house. He spoke of a locked room, one he had never opened since that fateful day. It was in this room, he believed, that the source of the house's haunting lay. Driven by a mixture of fear and curiosity, the investigators convinced the caretaker to open the locked room. As the key turned in the lock, a chill ran through them. The door creaked open, revealing a room untouched by time, its contents a snapshot of a life long gone. Inside, they found personal belongings, toys, and a diary belonging to the caretaker's sister. As they read the diary, they began to understand the true nature of the haunting. The sister had been sensitive to the paranormal, her writings filled with tales of speaking to spirits and entities beyond the veil. The final entry in the diary spoke of a ritual, one she believed would bring peace to the restless spirits in the house. But something had gone terribly wrong. The ritual had unleashed something far more sinister, a malevolent force that had claimed the lives of the caretaker's family. The caretaker, tears in his eyes, confessed that he had lived with the guilt ever since. He had kept the room locked, hoping to contain the evil within. But he realized now that his efforts had been in vain. The haunting had continued, growing stronger with each passing year. As they stood in the room, the air around them grew cold, and a sense of dread enveloped them. They felt the presence of something otherworldly, a dark force that had been awakened by their intrusion. The investigators knew they had to finish what had been started all those years ago. Using the diary as their guide, they prepared to conduct the ritual once more, this time to banish the malevolent force for good. The caretaker joined them, his knowledge of the house and its history proving invaluable. Together, they recited the words, their voices echoing through the halls. The house trembled, the air crackling with energy. Shadows danced on the walls, and a howling wind filled the room. Then, as suddenly as it had begun, it was over. The house fell silent, the oppressive atmosphere lifting. The investigators and the caretaker felt a sense of peace, a sign that the ritual had been successful. The caretaker thanked them, his burden of knowledge finally lifted. He decided to leave the house, his duty fulfilled. The investigators left too, their mission accomplished, but their minds filled with the memories of what they had experienced. The house, now free from its haunting, stood silent and empty, but it would always be remembered as a place of secrets and mysteries, a reminder of the thin veil between the living and the dead. The story of the caretaker's secret was more than just a tale of a haunted house. It was a story of redemption, of facing one's past, and of the power of knowledge. And for those who had witnessed the events of that night, it was a reminder that some secrets are better left locked away. The artist's last work. In the quiet town of Willow Creek stood an old, haunted house that once belonged to a famous artist. The artist had passed away many years ago, leaving behind a legacy of incredible artwork. Among these was his last, unfinished masterpiece, shrouded in mystery and tragedy. This very painting drew the interest of a young art historian, eager to uncover the story behind the canvas. The historian, named Clara, was fascinated by the artist's work and the legends that surrounded his haunted house. She had heard stories of the artist's ghost, still lingering in the rooms where he once created his masterpieces. Driven by curiosity and a love for art, Clara decided to spend a few nights in the house, hoping to learn more about the unfinished painting. As Clara explored the house, she could feel the presence of the artist. The air was thick with the scent of old paint and turpentine, and the walls were adorned with his famous works. But it was in the art studio where the real mystery lay. There, on an easel, was the unfinished painting, an enigmatic portrait of a woman whose face was yet to be completed. Each night, Clara delved into the artist's journals, uncovering the story behind the painting. She learned of a tragic love story, a muse who was the artist's greatest inspiration and deepest sorrow. The woman in the painting was this muse, a love lost to time and circumstance, leaving the artist heartbroken and his masterpiece unfinished. As Clara pieced together the story, strange occurrences began to happen in the house. Brushes moved on their own, paints would be found in different places, and the unfinished painting seemed to change subtly each morning. It was as if the artist's spirit was still there, trying to communicate through his final work. One night, while Clara was studying the painting, she felt a cold breeze in the room. Turning around, she saw the ghost of the artist, his eyes filled with sadness and longing. He reached out to her, and in that moment, Clara understood what she needed to do. The ghostly artist was unable to find peace, tied to the world of the living by his unfinished masterpiece. Clara realized that to help him move on, she needed to complete the painting. With a mix of trepidation and excitement, she picked up her brush and began to paint, guided by the spirit of the artist. As she painted, Clara felt as though she was connecting with the artist across time. She could feel his presence guiding her hand, helping her bring the portrait to life. The woman in the painting, once just a sketch, began to take form, her features becoming clear under Clara's careful strokes. The night Clara finished the painting, the house was filled with an ethereal light. The artist's ghost appeared once more, but this time his expression was different. His eyes, once filled with sorrow, now sparkled with gratitude and peace. He nodded to Clara, a silent thank you, before fading away into the light. The next morning, Clara found the painting completed, its colors vibrant and alive. The woman in the portrait seemed to smile, her eyes reflecting a story of love and loss, but also of closure and peace. Clara left the house, taking the finished masterpiece with her. She knew that she had done more than just complete a painting. She had helped a tormented soul find rest. The house, once haunted by the artist's unfinished business, was now just an old building, its mysteries laid to rest. The story of the artist's last work became a legend in the art world, a tale of an unfinished painting completed by a young historian, guided by the spirit of the artist. The painting was displayed in a museum, a testament to the connection between art and the supernatural, and a reminder of the unfinished business that can tie us to this world. For Clara, the experience was more than just an adventure. It was a journey into the heart of art, where the lines between life and death, past and present, were blurred. She had not only uncovered the story behind the artist's last work but had also played a part in completing it, bringing peace to a restless spirit. As for the house, it stood silently, its walls echoing with the memories of the artist and his muse. It was a place where art had bridged the gap between the living and the dead, where a painting had held the key to unraveling a ghostly mystery. And for those who knew the story, the house would always be more than just an old building. It would be a symbol of the power of art to transcend time and bring closure to even the most restless of spirits. Whispers in the walls. In the small, sleepy town of Ravenswood, there stood an old, infamous house known for its unsettling whispers and strange sounds. The house, abandoned for years, had become the center of ghost stories and local legends. It was to this eerie setting that a sound technician named Leo and a psychic named Elise were drawn, each driven by their own reasons. Leo, a rational and skeptical sound technician, was intent on recording the paranormal sounds the house was famous for. He was equipped with the latest audio technology, determined to either capture evidence of the supernatural or debunk the myths altogether. Elise, on the other hand, was a sensitive psychic who could feel and interpret the energies of a place. She believed that the whispers in the walls were communications from the afterlife, messages that needed to be heard. As they entered the house, the air felt thick, heavy with the weight of untold stories. The walls seemed to hum with a low, barely audible whisper, a sound that sent shivers down their spines. Leo set up his equipment, eager to capture any abnormal sounds, while Elise closed her eyes, tuning into the energies of the house. The first few hours passed with little incident. Leo's equipment picked up nothing more than the creaks and groans of an old house. But as the sun set and darkness enveloped the house, the atmosphere changed. The whispers grew louder, more insistent, as if the house itself was speaking to them. Elise began to experience intense visions. She saw flashes of the house's past, glimpses of the people who had once lived there. Each vision was more vivid than the last, revealing the joys and sorrows that had been absorbed by the walls of the old house. She felt the presence of several spirits, some peaceful, others filled with anger and regret. Meanwhile, Leo's equipment started to pick up eerie voices. The whispers turned into clear words, but they were in a language neither of them understood. The voices seemed to be having a conversation, unaware or uncaring of their eavesdroppers. As the night progressed, the energy in the house grew more intense. The temperature dropped, and a sense of dread filled the air. Elise became increasingly unsettled, her psychic senses overwhelmed by the strength of the spirits. She warned Leo that they were not alone, that the spirits were aware of their presence. Then, suddenly, they encountered it, the angry spirit. It manifested as a cold gust of wind, blowing through the room, extinguishing their candles. Elise could feel its rage, a powerful, suffocating force that seemed to bear down on them. The spirit was communicating through the whispers, its voice now loud and clear, expressing its fury and pain. Leo, though frightened, managed to record the spirit's voice. He and Elise listened to the playback, hearing the anger in the ghostly words. Elise, using her psychic abilities, interpreted the message. The spirit was bound to the house by a tragic past, unable to move on due to unresolved anger and regret. They realized that they needed to help the spirit find peace. Using a combination of Leo's recordings and Elise's psychic connection, they communicated with the spirit, acknowledging its pain and offering it release. Elise guided the spirit, helping it let go of its earthly ties. As they did so, the atmosphere in the house shifted, the oppressive weight lifted, and the air felt lighter. The whispers in the walls quieted, turning into a gentle hum before fading away completely. The angry spirit, having found peace, moved on, leaving the house in silence. Leo and Elise left the house as the first light of dawn crept over the horizon. They had not only recorded evidence of the paranormal but had also helped a troubled soul find rest. The experience changed them both, reinforcing Elise's belief in the supernatural and opening Leo's mind to possibilities he had never considered. The story of whispers in the walls spread throughout the town, a tale of two people who had dared to communicate with the afterlife and unravel the mysteries of the haunted house. The house itself, now silent, stood as a testament to their journey, a place where the whispers had once spoken of a past too long hidden in the shadows. For Leo and Elise, the night in the haunted house was more than just an investigation. It was a journey into the unknown, a confrontation with the unseen forces of the world. And as they moved on to their next adventure, they carried with them the memories of the whispers in the walls, a reminder of the power of belief and the importance of listening to those who have long been silenced. The Forbidden Room. In the heart of a fog-shrouded town stood an old, imposing house known for its haunting presence and a particularly mysterious room that remained locked and shrouded in secrecy. It was this very room that caught the interest of a young writer named Ethan, who was in search of inspiration for his next horror novel. Ethan had heard the legends about the house, its ghostly apparitions, strange noises, and the forbidden room that no one had entered for decades. Intrigued by the mystery, he decided to spend a week in the house, hoping to uncover the secrets behind the locked door and ignite his creativity. On his first night, Ethan wandered through the dimly lit corridors, the house groaning and creaking around him. He came upon the door to the forbidden room. It was old, its wood warped, and a heavy padlock secured it. Despite his efforts, the door remained firmly shut, its secrets lying just beyond his reach. Undeterred, Ethan returned the next day with tools to break the lock. With a final, forceful twist, the padlock clicked open and the door creaked ajar. As he stepped inside, a feeling of intense claustrophobia washed over him. The room was small and dust-laden, filled with objects from various time periods. A Victorian-era mirror, a 1920s typewriter, a 1950s radio, each carrying its own history. The air in the room felt heavy, as if charged with unseen energy. As Ethan explored, he noticed the objects seemed strangely well preserved, almost as if they were waiting to be used. He began to experience disorienting time slips, moments where the room transformed, showing him glimpses of its past occupants. Each slip lasted only a few seconds, but they left Ethan feeling dizzy and disoriented. The most frequent vision was of a woman, her face twisted in anguish. She was the ghost of the room's last occupant, and her presence in the visions was overwhelming. Ethan felt her sorrow, her desperation, as if they were his own emotions. The more he experienced these time slips, the more he became obsessed with understanding the room's history and the ghost story. Through research in the local library and the time slips, Ethan pieced together the tragic tale. The woman was a writer like him, who had lived in the house during the 1950s. She had been working on her masterpiece, a novel that she believed would change her life. But she was plagued by critics and self-doubt, her mind a whirlwind of despair and pressure. One fateful night, overcome by her emotions, she had taken her own life in the room, her story left unfinished. Her spirit, bound to the room, relived her final moments over and over again. It was her pain and sorrow that kept the room locked, her energy creating a barrier that no one dared to cross until now. Ethan realized that the room was a physical manifestation of the writer's turmoil. The objects were anchors, each tied to a moment of her life. He felt a deep connection to her, their experiences as writers bridging the gap between the living and the dead. Determined to free her spirit, Ethan decided to do the one thing she could not: complete her story. He began to write, using the 1950s typewriter, his words guided by the visions and emotions he experienced in the room. As he wrote, the ghostly figure of the woman watched, her expression gradually changing from one of anguish to peace. After many hours, as the first light of dawn crept through the windows, Ethan typed the last words of the novel. A sense of release filled the room, the heavy air lifting. The woman's ghost smiled at Ethan, a silent thank you, before fading away, her spirit finally at rest. Ethan emerged from the room, exhausted but fulfilled. He had uncovered the truth behind the forbidden room and had helped a troubled soul find peace. His time in the room had changed him. His understanding of history and the weight of unfulfilled dreams deepened. The story of the forbidden room became the inspiration for his novel, a tale of curiosity, connection across time, and the power of storytelling. The house, with its once forbidden room, stood silent, its mystery unraveled and its ghost laid to rest. For Ethan, the experience was more than just an adventure. It was a journey into the depths of human emotion and the transcendent power of writing. He had not only discovered the story behind the locked door, but had also completed a journey that transcended time and bridged the gap between the living and the dead. And in doing so, he had found the inspiration he was seeking, his own story forever intertwined with that of the haunted house and the ghost of the forbidden room. The Last Will. In the small town of Greystone, the ancient and mysterious Hawthorne mansion stood as a testament to the wealthy family's long and storied history. But the recent passing of the last Hawthorne owner, the surviving family members gathered in the grand, shadowy hall of the mansion for the reading of the will. The heirs, distant relatives of varying degrees, were an eclectic group, each harboring their own secrets and desires for the fortune. They were unaware, however, of a silent observer among them, the ghost of the deceased owner, determined to reveal hidden truths. The will reading revealed an unusual condition. To claim their inheritance, the heirs had to stay in the house for 1 full week. Initially, this seemed a simple enough task for the fortune at stake. However, as night fell, the true nature of the Hawthorne mansion began to reveal itself. Strange occurrences started to unsettle the heirs. Objects moved on their own, cold drafts filled the rooms, and eerie sounds echoed through the hallways. The most unsettling of all was the family portrait in the main hall, where the expressions of the painted figures seemed to change, reflecting the growing tension among the living relatives. As days passed, the ghost of the deceased owner intervened more directly. It became clear that he had unfinished business, and his presence was not just a haunting, but a force acting upon the heirs. Family conflicts rose to the surface, fueled by the ghost's influence, revealing greed, betrayal, and hidden resentments. Amidst the chaos, one of the younger heirs, Charlotte, a distant niece with a keen interest in the family's history, began to piece together the story of the ghost. Through old letters and diaries found in the mansion, she uncovered a tragic tale. The deceased owner had been wronged by his own family, his death shrouded in mystery and suspicion. The climax came on the last night of their stay. The ghost, growing more powerful, orchestrated a final, dramatic revelation. Charlotte discovered evidence that the deceased owner's fate was not due to natural causes, but a planned act of malice by one of the family members, driven by greed. This revelation rocked the family, bringing long-buried secrets into the light. The ghost, his truth finally revealed, was able to find peace, his spectral presence fading away with the break of dawn. The will's condition had served its purpose, not just to distribute wealth, but to expose the greed and deceit that had plagued the Hawthorne family. The heirs, chastened by their experiences, left the mansion with a new understanding of their family's history and their own roles within it. The last will became a story passed down through generations, a tale of a haunted mansion, a vengeful spirit, and a family's reckoning with its own dark past. The Hawthorne mansion, no longer haunted by its former owner, stood as a silent witness to the power of truth and retribution. And for those who had lived through that fateful week, the experience served as a haunting reminder of the consequences of greed and the importance of facing one's own ghosts. Echoes of Innocence. In the quaint town of Maplewood, there stood an old, historic house known to all as the Whispering Oaks. This house, with its grand, yet eerie architecture, had become a historic site, its walls echoing with the stories of the past. On a crisp autumn morning, a group of school children, accompanied by their teacher, Mr. Thompson, arrived at Whispering Oaks for a field trip. The children were abuzz with excitement and a hint of nervousness, having heard tales of the house being haunted. Mr. Thompson, a seasoned teacher with a love for history, assured them there was nothing to fear. He believed the house was a treasure trove of lessons, its stories a bridge between the past and the present. As they began their tour, the house seemed to welcome them, its old floorboards creaking under their feet. The walls were adorned with portraits of the former residents, and antique furniture filled the rooms. It was in the children's playroom, however, that the first hint of the house's magical nature revealed itself. Among the old toys and faded storybooks, the children found dolls and toy soldiers that once belonged to the children who lived in the house many years ago. As they played with them, a gentle, almost imperceptible giggle echoed through the room. The air shimmered slightly, and for a moment, the children thought they saw ghostly figures of kids from another era playing alongside them. Mr. Thompson, seeing the children's wide-eyed wonder, began to tell them stories of the house's past. He spoke of the families who had lived there, the joys and sorrows they had experienced. As he did, the children felt a deep connection to those who had come before them, their innocent hearts open to the echoes of history. The most enchanting moment came when they found an old nursery rhyme book in the playroom. The book was worn, its pages yellowed with age, but the rhymes were timeless. Mr. Thompson read them aloud, and as he did, the children heard soft singing, a chorus of ghostly voices joining in. The song was sweet and melancholic, filling the room with a sense of nostalgia and warmth. The spirits of the house, once children themselves, seemed drawn to the innocence and joy of the visiting kids. They showed them hidden nooks and crannies of the house, each spot holding a story of the past. The children learned of secret hideaways, grand parties, and quiet moments of family life long gone. As the day drew to a close, Mr. Thompson gathered the children for a group photo in front of the house. They posed on the steps, smiling and laughing, unaware of the gentle spirits watching over them. When the photo was developed, there, among the faces of the living children, appeared the translucent figures of the house's former young residents, smiling as if pleased to be remembered. The field trip to Whispering Oaks became a cherished memory for the children, a day when history came alive and they made friends with the gentle spirits of the past. They left the house with a deeper understanding of the lives that had unfolded within its walls, the joy and the sadness, the laughter and the tears. For Mr. Thompson, the experience reinforced his belief in the power of history to connect generations. The house, with its whispers of the past, had provided his students with a unique, heartwarming experience, a reminder that those who came before us continue to shape our world in ways seen and unseen. Echoes of Innocence became a story passed down in the school, a tale of a magical day when the past and present met, and children learned that history is not just dates and events, but stories of real people who lived, loved, and played just like them. The Whispering Oaks house, once a place of mystery and whispers, now stood as a symbol of the enduring innocence of childhood and the timeless nature of history. It was a place where the past was alive, where the echoes of laughter and song could still be heard, and where the spirits of the past found joy in the presence of the future.